name's Tony Lett. I'm the general manager at Fred Bean's Kia in Langhorne. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman, Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now, and anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry has been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry, and he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer, and that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out of a textbook, but Larry has real-world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there, and I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
All right. Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, if you don't want to be bothered, fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
I'm giving it to you straight up. Hi, I'm Tom.
Well, this is Ian, and this is Jeff. Here we are at NADA 2024. I can't believe it's 2024 already.
We find the people in Colombia, we train them specifically in automotive. Right now we are starting developing also an AI tool that allows us to train people faster so that they can hit the ground running. And we provide that at affordable prices for automotive agencies that need to grow, need to expand, and that need to expand quickly as well. So we try to do everything very fast. We have kind of like a 2 to 3 week promise to provide you with the talent that you're looking for.
What brings you here?
Well, to be quite honest, the Star Standard Alliance, right? Star Council general session was on Wednesday. I was invited to speak and talk about what's going on with the world of artificial intelligence and what do dealers really need to be thinking about when it comes to data management, right? What are the opportunities they have to leverage their first-party assets that they have, which is the data they're sitting.
Yeah. And What have you succeeded? Other than the great speaking thing, everybody was talking about you. It was in the newspaper and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And the paparazzi, 10 o'clock news here in Vegas.
Exactly.
All righty. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
So go ahead, Mr. Polo. I got a couple books here, as always. I thought it was pertinent to have a book on pivot since it's the Pivot Show, 4 disciplines of execution and your next 5 moves. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, good morning, everybody. And actually, on the topic of pivoting, we planned this to come after the Super Bowl. And, I was kind of hoping to talk about a certain couple individuals that pivoted while running. It was kind of mediocre for that part, but it's still a fun game. But the views and opinions shared today are those of our guests and not necessarily that of the Auto Hub show or Ian and Jeff. And please read this to get all the details on it. So thank you.
All righty. So the show today is about how do we pivot our team in 2024. Obviously, when you look at what's happening in 2024, we're going to get into that. But there was a lot of discussion at NADA about software of various types, not to pick any. But the piece of software that probably got the most attention from everybody was AI. If you didn't have a chance to go to NADA, definitely subscribe to the Auto Hub show. We are going to be releasing a bunch of interviews. We got a bunch in the can as soon as we have a chance, including an interview with Troy Glenn from CDK once we get approved by CDK. Anyway, let's get into it. Go ahead, Mr. Jeff.
All right. So our guest today, we have a bevy of people haven't been on, and thank you, and a newbie. So we got to introduce the newbie, because what the heck, we got to get him going here. From joining us from A to Z Sync, because this is for the Americans in the room, us Canadians will go A to Z Sync, is Perry Moholt. Hopefully I've got that correct, Perry. If you could just introduce yourself quickly, tell us a bit about yourself and the company.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity of being on the show. I've learned a lot about it through my colleague, Doug Reeves, and he enjoys joining you guys every week. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here, so I'm filling in. I'll do the best I can, but it's great to meet all you guys and build connections within the industry. I myself started in the industry right when I got out of college. I knew it's what I wanted to do. From the time I was 6 till the time I was 18, all I asked for Christmas was a subscription to the Rob Report. So luxury yachts, luxury planes, but mostly luxury cars. I just love that and ate it up since I was a little kid. So I started working in the dealership business. I was a part-time photographer for a while, so that's how I got into it. I was doing inventory photography. Then I started selling cars. Then I was a sales manager, and then I had the opportunity to move over to the dark side, to the vendor side of things. Yeah, sorry.
The dark side.
I made the switch, and I was lucky enough to find a job here at A to Z, and I loved it ever since. So A to Z is a online to in-store tool. We call it end-to-end, hence the A to Z. That just helps you get your leads in faster, desk, menu, submit, everything all in the same tool. So we're really trying to minimize technology as one of the friction points in a dealership, and loving it so far. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And a special welcome to our 2 sponsors who are on the show from CDK and Ultra BDC. Go ahead, Jeff.
You're located in Denver, right?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Slightly north of Denver, we have our second guest who hasn't been on for a while. And I do have to say our next 2 guests, official guests, are probably the most colorful people we've had on in a long time, not just other than a certain individual. But Pamela Pearson, who's joining us from the sprawling metropolis of Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. Pamela, thanks for joining us, and love the glasses. You always have nice glasses.
Yes, these are the new ones where you can...
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Cool.
Transformer.
Color with your outfit. So I have blue pants on today, so we have blue glasses.
Cool. And just quick introduction, please.
Okay, yeah. So Pamela Pearson, I work at Centus Automotive. We have 3 rooftops and 4 brands, Lexus, Mercedes, Nissan, and Infiniti. I've been with the company for about 15 and a half years. And I feel like our company is pretty good at doing this whole pivoting thing when it comes to, needing to make a change because we have such a progressive dealer principal And yeah, so happy to be here and
Great.
happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. And I have to say, anybody of you that don't, you should follow Pamela because, frankly, it's one of the most positive employee experiences I've ever seen in the car industry. Instead of posting about the owner's investment in their condo projects or whatever, they're posting about people. And there's always those three things: people, product, and process. Or some people put product and process worse, but frankly, it's great. You should follow her. And last but not least is our good friend joining us. Speaking of sprawling metropolises, the general, I can't remember the name of your suburb, but Halifax, Nova Scotia. We're having a very large Canadian contingent today. Kim McPherson, please say hi, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Kim McPherson. I own a company called Sell It Smart and Buy It Smart Auto. I recently have added a used car dealership to my roster, so I'm now also a dealer again for the second time, which is kind of cool. But my primary focus is to help dealers set up and optimize their traditionally we would refer to as non-prime department. I like to refer to it now as just teaching dealers the finance first concept of selling vehicles to people that may not have perfect credit, so less than perfect credit customers or very budget savvy customers that may prefer to purchase a vehicle in a finance first way. That's my jam, and that's what I do.
And for those of you who weren't at NADA, we did introduce Sandy. She did a presentation on, I think, is inclusive and what was it on? Sorry, Jeff, inclusive and
DEI.
DEI. That's not drunk under the influence, just so you know. But we do have an interview with her that will be up as soon as we have a chance to finish it up. So if you are interested in that topic, specifically around hiring, specifically around not getting sued in automotive, it's a really good interview. So definitely check it out. It was Sandy, the dancing friend of the show. Go ahead, Jeff.
It's actually something we're not allowed to do in the car industry under all the various governing bodies. Drunk and extremely influenced. Ian, can you go to? Actually, I do want to officially recognize our sponsors on the show today, which is our new good friend, John Hyman from Ultra BDC. You should check out the AI BDC stuff. And Troy Glenn from the mothership of CDK, and thank you. And Troy will be joining us as a guest thing next week on our negotiation show. So that should be very interesting. Ian,
and thanks for taking the time of the interview to NADA, Troy. That was really interesting, by the way. But go ahead. We
enjoyed that. We should have been on the loudspeakers there, Troy. That would have been
Stay tuned for the recording soon. We just got to get approval.
So things have changed almost overnight. I think we'd all agree with that. And so what are you seeing out there for team behaviors now that the buyer, my original question has some control, but everything I'm hearing is the buyer has a ton of control. Perry, I'll ask you that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably one of the easier answers to this question is team behaviors. I mean, teams are just lacking training. Over the last 3 to 4 years, there hasn't been a concrete need for training within the dealership. Profits were so high. Selling cars was pretty easy. It was basically a, do you want the car? We have it. Even if they wanted another color, you're going to have to settle for this one. So there wasn't necessarily that need to actually sell our product. So I think as we move into this 2024, 2025, this great normalization, as I saw on LinkedIn, I think that team behaviors are probably going to be wrapped around training, and we're going to have to build up the behavior that we want to execute within our dealership. And that starts from the top down, from the GMs investing in their people, and then the GSMs and sales managers, more importantly, holding their people accountable to the behaviors that they want to see within the dealership.
Perfect. I actually, there's a trainer that's now gone out of business because they were selling their word track, which is, do you want to buy? Buy. You don't want to buy? Buy. Pamela, what's your thought on this?
Well, yes, training is definitely something that I think everybody's probably focusing on. One of the things that we are trying to capitalize on is any of those salespeople who have been around longer than the last 4 years, where they didn't have to try that hard, and reminding them of how it used to be, and trying to bring those sales skills back out that they had previously, and have them work with some of the newer people who have only known easy selling. So really trying to lean on those who have been around for a long time.
Perfect. Well, it's funny too. Having had a lot of discussions with Kim about things like this, because working in the subprime part of the business, it's got a terrible reputation as being like, all right, you just take it and that's the way it is, and if you don't like it, tough rock, And seeing people going from that to this, I know it's probably very much near and dear to her heart. So, Kim, what's your viewpoint on the on team behaviors now? What's happening?
Well, I think, we all have to pivot and change right now. And one of the things that it seems to be becoming more and more clear that, we can't do things the way that we used to do things. People buy online now. There's technology, there's issues around people's finances and their credits. I'm just one section of multiple things that have happened in the last 4 years to make this perfect storm. And I think really it's about knowing, I call them your stats and your ratios. Like, dealers have to look at, where are they wasting time and losing money right now? I totally agree. There's not enough training for all staff, whether it be technology, whether it be online retailing, whether it be in my neck of the woods, which is teaching people how to sell a vehicle, putting the finance ahead. There's a lot to be learned, and there's a lot to teach. And I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the finesse of some of the stuff that's not costing us right now. I like to think of it about like, if I'm talking to a dealer, it's like, what are the bleeding arteries right now? And I just watched 3 people come in, hold up pay stubs and say, I don't know if I can get approved. Like, I'd rather not test drive. And you still walk them over to a vehicle. So like, we still have leads sitting there idle because nobody's picking up the phone to call them and chase them down. So it's like, do we really need to be talking about EVs now? I don't know.
That's a really interesting point, because we've gone through a period of a few years where you didn't have to follow up on leads. You could sit there and what was it? It's like going to the to whatever fair you remember with a shotgun and shoot to the duck thing.
Turkey
and
shoot.
You just pull the trigger and you could hit some ducks. Ian, next question.
Yeah. Are dealers actually ready for this? Or are they just falling back on old easy habits? I mean, it was interesting when we were at NADA, we interviewed a lot of different companies, everything from companies with AI tools around inspecting cars in the drive, to a woman from Colombia who has using AI tools to recruit creative talent for dealers. Pretty much everyone at the show was talking about AI and a certain thing, but the bigger question that I think was really top of mind versus a couple of years ago was the move towards digital retail. Finally, the dealers being dragged kicking and screaming and going, okay, maybe we should pay attention to this. And I thought that was really interesting. But, are dealers actually ready to finally make the change?
Pardon me, Ian. And you forgot about the car washes and EV chargers.
Oh, yeah. If you didn't see Jeff walking through a car wash, I think he got some extra shine through that.
It was exfoliating.
There were just a few electric car companies trying to sell chargers, including, if you're familiar with the Ocean from Fisker, Jeff had an experience with that. But also they had a solar panel company that sells solar panels on roofs, but they didn't want to talk to us because the operations guy doesn't do interviews. But anyway, let's start with A to Z for Canadians, or A to Z for Americans on that. What do you think?
I think some dealers will be and some dealers won't, just like the pandemic when that hit us. I mean, you're going to see who's going to make it and who isn't. I mean, there's a lot of compression right now, especially in franchise dealerships with the large publics buying up those groups that aren't ready. So it's going to be a sink or swim type scenario, just like COVID with the lack of vehicles. Now we have vehicles sitting on lots. The vehicles are back. We got to figure out how to price them, and we got to train our people so they can sell them. So I think that whether dealers are ready or not, is gonna. I mean, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But I think the salespeople and the sales teams that are under the dealerships on our variable ops side of things, that's gonna make the biggest difference. So if we have good leadership within our dealerships, from the top down that are able to not only help close deals but enable and empower our salespeople to close deals on their own, I think that's where we're going to see success. Someone, either Pamela or Kim, spoke to time being an absolute deal killer, and that's one of the big things with this new digital retailing frontier, with all the tools that are accessible to our clients online. They want to come in store and they want to get their car and leave. They don't want to be spending 3 or 4 hours when they're in the store. So are dealers ready for something like this? They better be, is the short answer. Because those large publics are ready to start eating up those mom and pop stores if we don't start, helping them out. And I'd love to.
All right, Pamela, thanks for that. Pamela, I mean, I know shockingly you have, I don't know, low-end consumers in Kelowna maybe that, don't care about experience. Maybe you can share some thoughts on selling, I don't know, high-end cars in Kelowna of all places, and what your customer expectations is.
Yeah, for sure. I think that obviously there are all different types of customers in Kelowna, but we do see more of the luxury buyer because of our brands. And yeah, they do have different expectations. And even between, for example, Lexus and Mercedes, the customers are totally different. Their expectations are different. How they interact with people is different. And so it's very interesting. Like if you spend a week, I sat with the service advisors at our new Mercedes store that just opened in the summer. And then you spend a week with the Lexus team, and it just is shocking how different the customers are. And about whether dealers are ready, I think that automotive often tends to be kind of antiquated and like in the dark ages. So I think that lots of dealers wait to see like what's the next guy doing, waiting to see who's going to take the first step and then see what happens. When COVID hit, we had other dealers calling us saying like, what are you guys doing? What's your plan? Can we copy your plan? So I think that when there are associations within cities, I think that these are the topics that should be discussed so that the dealers can be doing this together instead of everybody just trying to figure it out for themselves. So really capitalizing on not trying to reinvent the wheel each time. Everybody works together and just does better.
I have to just pipe in there saying that you mean the Lexus team does not accept problems with their cars, but the Mercedes guys go, don't worry, we'll fix it?
Yes.
Wow.
Boom.
You mean Hans and Franz are different? I don't know. Go ahead. Let's go with Kim. Go ahead, Kim.
I'm sorry, I lost what were you asking me?
Do you think the dealers are ready for the new technology and the AI and the bots and video and experience? You think they're ready to finally embrace digital retail and upgrade the experience for customers?
Yeah, I think I think overall, no. But I think there's got to be some ways that we can try to figure out how to bring what is required to a larger group of dealers in one shot. I know myself, I try to work a lot of affiliate arrangements. If there's my problems that I see in dealers are obviously finance related, and which does also encompass the online purchase process. And non-prime, we've been selling vehicles to our customers' homes since 2004, like delivery, and signing documents at the kitchen table. So it's a process that we're pretty accustomed to if you're in the non-prime business. But there's just a lot coming at these dealers. Like, and where do you start? So I think sometimes the support, that's what I mean at a high level. It's like, can we prioritize the parts of the business that are bleeding out right now, and and focus on fixing those? In my world, it is totally normal for a dealer to tell me if they sell 80 cars a month, 40 of them do not roll because they can't get the customer approved. That is like a massive bleed out of money, let alone the opportunity that's on the table. So, and I'm sure everyone that whatever their specialty is can speak to the same kind of thing. Maybe that's the area that our lenders, our manufacturers, the big companies should be looking at to support their dealers. How do we better support our dealers so they can learn and have the tools and technology that they need to be able to handle actually what's happening today, right now?
Yeah,
Because my people can't afford an EV.
Yeah, we had a panel in Toronto, of all places, for Used Car Week, and Kim was on it with some other folks. And the dealers in the room were like, really? 25% of our customers are non-prime? We have no idea. Like, why? Like, we weren't aware of that. We were just like, really? Troy, I mean, obviously you guys have AI at the small company. I think it's a startup called CDK. Maybe you can chime in on our dealers ready. You just spent some time with them in Vegas.
Yeah. I'm going to say that there are dealers that are ready and there are dealers that are not. And I'm going to agree with Kim. The overarching conversation was going to be that a lot of dealers just weren't ready. They're kind of panicking a little bit. It was, how do we pivot during COVID? Now, how do we pivot during, the inventory resurgence? But the technology piece, that no amount of technology or single piece of technology is going to replace the good, just doing things right, to echo sort of what Pamela was saying earlier. Honestly, if the best AI is the one that you don't know is running in the background, because it just makes everyone's life a little better. And I don't think we need to overcomplicate it. I was buying insurance for my cabin, and I went up to the insurance guy and I said, "Hey, I think you need to sell me insurance for my cabin." He said, "I don't sell insurance. I help people who need insurance to buy it." And if we could pivot to that mindset of, I'm not trying to jam a car out the door into this customer today, but if they want to buy a car anyway, whether it's online, in the store, hybrid of both, I want to be there to help them do that. And if that's the attitude that dealers have, those ones are going to be ready regardless of what is thrown at them.
Great point. I was recently trying to buy a new hard drive for my computer because I'm storing massive video files. And I went to two retailers. I went to Best Buy and I went to Apple. And I said, listen, I need to buy a huge hard drive. Can you sell me one? And the guy at Best Buy was like, oh, well, hard drives, I don't know anything about them. I'm like, okay, fine. So then I went to Apple, and then I went to the Genius Bar. Can you explain this to me? And he's like, well, I don't really know about that. Let me get you a salesperson. I'm like, but you're the genius. You can't even read the package. Then the sales guy comes over, oh yeah, it has this, that. I'm like, I read that on the box, dude. like, can you help me? It was kind of funny. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, yeah, the going to the Genius Bar is like going to service and asking for how do you about the features and benefits of the different models of a car. And they're genius at fixing things, but so what we know there's lots of weird stuff going on right now, and dealers are kind of being caught with their pants down. And I talked to a few people that are sitting there going, oh man, I actually had somebody go in to see somebody on a, ready for this, a Toyota BZ4X, BZ4X. And they went into a Toyota store and they have a lot full of them. They don't have anything else, but they have BZ4Xs, BZ4Xs. And they said, what incentives do you have? Don't have anything. Well, they have 4.99 or something. He said, why should I buy it? And the salesperson basically looked at him and said, well, it's an EV. And it's like, oh okay. And they ended up leaving. Now, we all know their experience before was everybody was lined up. They had waiting lists. They didn't suddenly build a bazillion of these things. All these people that were on waiting lists suddenly went, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of rethinking it. Can I have my deposit back, please? And we all know that rabbit hole. If you want to hold a deposit, it's not worth it. But nevertheless, that's another thing. But if there was one mistake that you're seeing with teams right now, what is that one mistake you're seeing, Perry?
So with teams inside of dealerships, especially when, initiatives come down from the dealers or the GMs, I think the teams within the dealerships aren't necessarily proactive. They're very reactive. So they'll try to do whatever they can to make a sale, and if they can't, if they don't have the knowledge or if they don't have the value to bring to the table to make that sale, then I think they're going to be genuinely unhappy. And like we've talked about, I mean, we talked about at the beginning of the show, the last 3 or 4 years, I think you said, do you want to buy the car? Yes. Do you want to buy the car? No. And now we're having the art of the sales coming back, and teams really have to perfect that. And I would never blame a team for not selling a car. I think it's really the responsibility of the business to properly train the people that are selling their vehicles. But one thing that we are seeing during this kind of normalization is, I mean, during COVID, we saw like net to sales at dealerships 8-10%, and a healthy net to sales is like 5-6%. That's what we're targeting, sometimes even lower than that, depending on the market you're in. So just because our profits are compressing, it can't, as a dealer, we can't let that affect our teams. So I think a lot of dealerships might try to hold on to those profits by changing pay plans. But they definitely didn't change the pay plans when they were making money hand over fist. That didn't necessarily come to the sales team, except in the amount of gross that was generated. So I think a lot of dealers might try to recapture these profits by kind of unloading some of the burden onto the teams. And I really, really hope that doesn't happen, because that would negatively not only affect the teams themselves, we'd see higher turnover, but that would negatively affect the industry as well, from an employment standpoint. So I hope the best for the dealers, and I really think this is a great opportunity for the dealers, like Troy said, that are ready for this. I think this is a great opportunity to push the industry light years forward. Pamela said we're kind of stuck in the dark ages. I really think this is we're reaching critical mass here, and there needs to be some sort of turning point within our industry. And I think this is the time to do it, but some dealers just might not be ready for that.
Well, I have to say that we've come up with a couple of hip hop songs. First of all, Peter Smith wants to say something, so I'm just going to say jump, and jump up and down. You mentioned something that my mind went off at a tangent. Peter, please share your opinions.
Thank you, Jeff. Just listen to all these great points that have been shared today. I just want to add in something. I've been on calls this morning since 7 a.m. and every one of them is saying the same thing. We are hitting a point where we're going to see a seismic shift in the operational integrities of dealerships. It's going to change from a transactional period or transactional sale, which it has been for the last 10 years, back to a relationship sale. And the only way we're going to survive is if that happens. That's where companies like A to Z are perfectly positioned to take that forward, because you are sitting with a one-on-one rather than the pushing it through 7 different people at the dealership to convert one single sale. And if anyone was in the business when I started, which I don't think anyone but possibly John was down there, that we did everything right to running the contracts to the banks. So it's not that bad now, because we have technology that's going to help us, but it's going to be a single point solution. It's going to reduce our labor costs. It's going to increase our efficiency, and it's going to bring a customer experience that is going to be great. Now, having said that, we have have to recognize that by the NADA survey, the average tenure of a variable sales rep is 1.7 years in a dealership. 1.7 years. In the latest study, it costs $119,000 to change for turnover person. Everyone who's working in a dealership is going to say, no, it doesn't. Well, the actual scientific facts are it does. And we have to realize that it's not being recognized because it's not.
Excellent. That's a very good point.
So we have to really recognize it's time to pivot and time to recognize moving forward. That's just what I wanted to say.
Go ahead,
No, that's great. Kim, what are you seeing for one mistake? And it's funny in the subprime world, like Peter's talking about taking, and also Perry about taking time. On the subprime world, sometimes time is a fact, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, with the finance first customer, you obviously are spending a lot more time on the front end talking about their financials. And when you're talking to somebody about their financials, what we're talking about is a lot of the pieces of the equation that relate to their personal life, and the relationship that's being built there is one that has a lot of foundation underneath it. And so what's very dramatic to me in dealerships is exactly what Peter's saying, what Troy said. We, over the last number of years, yes, due to COVID, and I believe when everybody, started with the phones and social medias, people got a little bit different about how we build relationships and the basic interaction of dealing with people. We've got to go back to the basics to some degree. Where I see salespeople fail is they simply do not have the skill set to sit or talk to somebody on the phone, build a relationship so that the customer likes, and trusts you, so that no matter how they want to interact, whether it be they have financial issues and they interact finance first, like what I do, or they're online and they want to thumb the deal the whole way through, but they're willing to jump on the phone here and grab the deal in the end, or or they're a prime customer that's going to walk through the front door and just want it done fast, fast, fast. In non-prime, I say to my, to my training partners, you guys have 3 days from literal contact to close. Like, hi, I got the lead, to closed, deal funded, car in driveway. And we may be shipping that 8 hours or 10 hours down the road. But if you don't slam that into a 3-day time frame, you're done. And the only way that we can keep those customers holding on or involved in the process is the amount of relationship that's built up with the customer. In our world, that is a staple. We don't get people emotional on vehicles. In fact, they're unemotional about the Hyundai accent that smells a little bit like wet dog. So we've got to have a relationship, which is me and you, we're a team. We're going to rehab your credit. We're going to get you some money to buy a vehicle. All of that relationship piece has to be solid. They got to know, like, and trust you. And we lost that in dealerships. It's different now. People are different now. We've got to come back to that. And I think once that happens, the transaction piece will change to more of a relationship. And I agree with Peter. The deal's got to come. The more we can have a single person transaction, the better. But the only other thing I'll say is this, and you could see it years ago in the old auction lanes when the auto dealer said, or the auto auctions opened up the public auction, and people would arrive to the public auction to buy their vehicles. Well, they didn't, did they? They stood there in the lane and they didn't know what to do because they didn't have a coach. And I really believe if we get back to the basics and we teach our salespeople, our sales managers, how to build these relationships and just guide people through the process, how they want to do it, listen, try not to be a moron. We'll be all right.
That's great. By the way, I wanted to thank you for not mentioning that Nissan Sentra that smelled like a dog. We wouldn't want to offend Pamela.
No, that's cat piss.
Oh, by the way, I have to tell you something. There is a product out there that I use in my place called New Vin Air, and it is amazing. It's literally, I had a van that smelled like all that stuff and a few other things plus Coca-Cola, and it got rid of it. And cigarette. It was phenomenal. Anyway, I don't want to. I'm trying to get them as a sponsor.
And the other stuff, right?
Exactly.
The other
Pamela,
smoking
what's
products.
what's your thing? I mean, you're actually the one person here that deals with teams in plural, from versus a side of, let's say, anybody on the show other than Kim that's kind of running her own team. But you're dealing with all these different teams, all these different players. What mistakes are you seeing? Now, we don't want to get you in trouble with your teams because they're perfect. We know that.
One of our messages for 2024 is communication. There's a lot of work being put on behind the scenes operationally with the managers, lots of brainstorming and all of that. But if you don't communicate with your teams, they're making up their own narrative. And so, we understand as dealers that this is going to be more challenging for the teams and for some of the salespeople who worked harder in 2023 but made less money. Just getting out in front of those hard conversations they're going on in their heads already. And if you, as a manager, don't work through that with your team and get out in front of those uncomfortable conversations and get everybody back on track, that's going to be a major problem because the staff are expecting, everybody hopes to make a little more money each year, and coming out of having inventory that people will buy regardless, it definitely is going to require more work and maybe a little less money. But I feel like over the years, there have been other situations like 2008, 2009. Everybody bounces back. Everybody adapts. But yeah, communication is big for us the first quarter of this year.
I have to say, firsthand experience was seeing Toyota stores in 2009 suddenly dealing with things change at the same. In 2008 they dropped the access in Canada, anyways, the one price selling, and many of them had the one person thing. They went back to a more standard model. The market changed dramatically, and seeing salespeople, walk people out the door because they wanted $300 off a Corolla, and seeing the bald guy running down the street chasing the customer. No, 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 come back, come back, come back. But there's always these times where there's a shock, isn't there? When things change, when I don't want to say adversity, because frankly, I don't believe we're facing adversity right now. What we're facing is we've lost control. And we had control, or many dealers had control for a long time. Any comments from anybody else watching in that their opinion on the one mistake they're seeing? John, Brian?
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment here, guys, because Peter, Kim, Pamela made some extremely strong points, and I think with all the new tools and technologies out there, and having been down at NATA and seeing a lot of the software available, the AI available, what I've been doing is providing like a virtual team that the whole point is to do the communications on behalf of the dealerships and to be able to build that personal rapport and to build that connection with the customers, which maybe the dealerships weren't doing that well themselves. But even now, with all of the different possibilities in terms of the technology, I think that there still has to be an equal sort of appreciation of the human touch and having those good conversations. You know what I mean? Like there's so many dealers I'm dealing with are like, yeah, man, I've got this crazy digital marketing thing going. I got leads coming from here, there, and everywhere, and I got no way of actually managing all these leads and engaging these leads and actually connecting with these people. So I think that being kind of an old school phone salesperson myself, it's very interesting to me to see how the core requirement to make those connections and to have that human touch is still there, and it can't be totally overlooked.
Oh, that's very true. It's it's funny you mentioned the human touch going at NADA in Vegas. I saw all these driverless cabs running around with all these giant things on the roofs and sticking out of the side. And there was a Highlander and Ioniq 6 and all this stuff. But there was one thing that was there that's not supposed to be there. A driver. I saw a bunch of them and they had drivers, and I got a funny feeling that things didn't work out and the law mandated somebody be sitting there. So what's the point, frankly? Exactly. Any other comments before we move on to the next question? Brian,
Yeah.
the other John?
Sure, I'll jump in real quick. I mean, it's not really, I wouldn't say it is one thing. I think it really kind of boils down. But, Brett Morgan made a statement not too long ago in one of his manifestos that he put out on LinkedIn. It says, everywhere I look in our business, we create busy work that is purely a byproduct of poor communication, poor training, poor delegation, and bad process. And so a lot of this really boils down to, and a lot of the solutions that are out there, even the training solutions, I don't think training is the answer. I think there's a lot of things that are wrong. A lot of these solutions that are out there are like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. I think as organizations, we're incredibly weak as organizations. I don't think we have a lot of good organizational structure, organizational development. We lack a lot of knowledge on IO and behavioral psychology about how we ultimately build human-centric and intuitive organizations. And I think that's the foundation. If we don't fix that, everything else we put on top of it is just, again, it's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. We're not really fixing the lack of or the problem with the lack of organizational structure about how, because we all know this, we all put solutions in. A GM leaves because anytime we put a new solution in, it's disruptive. And so we see a dip in sales, and you get a 2 or 3 month dip in sales. All of a sudden a GSM or a GM is gone. And now the new guy comes in and he says, well, I'm going to do it my way. And so everything they were already doing, they scrap everything and we start over again. And then it's just this death spiral that all ends up happening in these stores. And a lot of it is because we just don't have good organizational and foundational structure when it comes to how we developed as an industry. And it's
interesting point, Brian. The difference between a owner operator store and a group with a standalone GM is there's many cases when there's turnover. An owner operator, it's a little tough to turn over, except maybe after 25 years when there's a succession plan in place. So there tends to be continuity, good or bad. There is continuity, and I think even bad continuity is better than good new guy coming in or new person coming in.
Yeah, sometimes that bad continuity can say, well, we've always done it this way. This is our process.
I worked for one.
So then they're stuck in doing things the way they've been doing it for the last 25 years, and they're not really open to understanding that it is a human first, customer centric. Peter and I go back and forth on this all the time. We're in the hospitality business. We just haven't admitted it yet, right? I mean, we don't sell cars. We provide experiences that sell cars, and that's really what it's about. And I think that's a mindset issue that we still as an industry have not really adopted. And then ultimately organizationally, what it takes to actually sustainably and successfully support that mindset. We just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, as soon as we start to get toward adopting it, then comes a change of something or other.
Right.
So Ian, last question.
Yeah. The now infamous car dealership guy posted on Friday that dealer profits are showing dramatic slides moving forward. How do you think that will affect dealership teams? What do you think, Pamela? What do you think?
Well, somebody earlier said, you can't necessarily put that on the teams. And so the organization as a whole needs to do a better job, expense management, and being really tight as an organization and not having that be the responsibility of your salespeople. So that's one of our focuses this year, especially with a brand new building that has huge overhead, is really trying to manage on the inside and not putting that additional pressure on the teams, because they already have enough pressure. They get paid when they sell a car. That's enough pressure for them. And so, putting more on them saying, well, we're not making as much money and whatever, it's not going to help them. It's not going to make them do a better job.
So you mean the Taj Mahal building doesn't sell cars by itself?
But do you have a sushi bar?
We have no food.
Oh, come on. I can't go there.
So I can
You
speak.
got to go with the open road. He has he imported a franchise from Japan just for his dealership. Go ahead.
I can speak to it really quickly. I worked for Ford and Lincoln, and Lincoln has just spent, Lincoln dealers have spent hundreds of millions of dollars of building new facilities. But what we've had to go back and do, I work on a consulting basis with them on occasion with dealer by dealer, but we built these brand new facilities that completely change the consumer experience and the building of how the consumer experience actually flows. Problem is they forgot to tell the dealers about it. Like they built these great buildings and, well, hey, we designed these very intentionally and very purposefully about how they ultimately do. And so now they're going back, and it's been a great training program of really kind of helping them understand that no different than we all heard the mood music over the years, like when you pump music and scents into a restaurant, it ultimately elicits a behavior. Well, how a building is actually built also elicits a certain behavior, as long as the people inside the building understand how to use that building as a tool. But really educating people on how that actually works it's a challenge. But you have to do it.
Fabulous point.
Yeah, I mean, we've had discussions about does the tile that the manufacturer choose mean anything to the average customer? But maybe Kim can speak to that, because we know we have a high-end experience in used car lots in her neck of the woods, right?
Well, I mean, the reality of the finance first concept is that there's a hell of a lot more people that, through no fault of their own, have experienced issues that put them in the category of needing to be pre-approved for their auto loans. I'm not talking about people that are just deciding not to pay their bills. I'm talking about two-income, hardworking families, over $200,000 a year coming into their household. They might have got, some job loss over the last couple of years. Somebody got sick. It was just enough to throw them literally slightly off the rails. And now they don't know if they qualify for the advertised rates, terms, and incentives that their local manufacturers dealers have. So to answer your question, because we do things in a finance first way, it hasn't, my average gross profit when I'm teaching it and when I do it has not changed. If anything, it's gone up. It's been $4,500 a copy since I started teaching it in 2002. It remains $4,500 a copy. We don't negotiate on the selling price, and we put most of our profits in the back end. It's how we structure the deal, how we prep the customer, how we manage their expectations, because we've got relationship behind that. That is the reason why there's no questioning around what the money is. The only difference that has happened in our world is that we're dealing with the very bad credit customers that, because they're coming all in at the same time, the name of the game in the finance first concept is to make contact quickly, do an assessment and determine, can this person buy today? Do we need more information? Or is there nothing that we can do with this customer? And that's the process of teaching in our franchise stores. Like, I don't know what this guy is saying. In my world, the profits are not, I don't see any world where our profits start going down. And so if dealers want to offset that, they got about 30% sitting on the table that they're just letting walk out the door right now.
100%. I mean, when you look
Call
at
me.
yeah, when you look at dealers, but more importantly, we look at websites, doesn't matter the industry, they haven't adapted on how they interact with customers on their website in many years. Just to be purely transparent, VidCalls is a sponsor of the show. If you're looking for the simplest piece of tech to stop customers in their tracks and sell more of anything, just reach out for a free demo. Takes 5 minutes. I'm not kidding, 5 minutes or less. Anyway, and of course, A to Z Sync. Let's talk about Perry and how maybe, I don't know, creating a better customer experience might impact your profitability.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm the new guy. Let me fall on my sword. I answered this question for the last question. That's why maybe something didn't make sense there. So I'll just actually build on two of the comments I heard here by Brian and Kim. Brian obviously had huge insight into the actual presentation of our dealerships and our brands. There's a lot of brands that are going through that kind of and trying to change their value differentiator. Lincoln is one of them. Genesis is another. They're investing hundreds of millions of dollars into new dealerships, kind of a new presentation. They're rebranding as this kind of not just a luxury segment of Hyundai or Ford, but as truly a something that compete against Mercedes or BMW. So they're investing all this money in these brand new beautiful dealerships with these open layouts and these just wonderful workflows, and the salespeople are getting trained up hypothetically. And then what you can't do is you can't be trying to reinvent your brand, and then when the client walks into your showroom, you hit them with the same sales process that they've dealt with for the last 30 years. That bottleneck going into finance, waiting 4 hours for a turnover. I think John touched on the lead submission to wait time for reaching out to a client, which AI can support us with. But ultimately, I do want that human touch because we're in the relationship business. So it's kind of two prongs. There's no value differentiators in our new cars anymore. There were for the last 3 or 4 years, and the value differentiator was we have it, they don't. Now there's no value differentiator. If you want a new car, 3 other dealerships have that car. So how do we differentiate ourselves? I think Peter touched on the one-person sales process. That's absolutely massive. If you can build that relationship and that rapport from the time someone enters your door until they're burning gas in one of your vehicles, that's going to be a repeat and referral client. And that's how we're going to generate more business. And then number 2, I wanted to touch on something that Kim said. She said setting expectations, managing expectations with our relationships. So when you have this single point of contact sales process, and I worked for the Champ dealership, so I sold at a single point of contact sales process. Managing the expectations is extremely important because we are going to run into those clients where an approval is going to take an hour, it's going to take 2 hours. But even if the approval takes 10 minutes, if you use your relationship to manage those expectations, the client's not going to hold that against you. So if you say, hey, this is the situation, I just want to let you know I'm submitting right now. Generally with these approvals, it takes 1 to 2 hours. Then for the next 1 to 2 hours, the client's going to be rating on your response. Whereas if you say, hey, I'm submitting it now, and then you ghost the client for 2 hours, they're going to start shopping elsewhere. So we have to use this, whatever value differentiator we have, whether it's one price, whether it's one person, whatever you want to do, the flip chart you have on your desk, we have to use that to build the relationship and ultimately sell the vehicle, but also let our client know every step of the way what we're going through, because they don't know what we're going through, especially if it's their first time. It doesn't matter. They don't necessarily know the process. So if you leave them waiting for 10 minutes, if you leave them waiting for 2 hours, they're going to just be like, what's going on? Why isn't my salesperson talking to me? So that communication and that managing expectations is very important.
Yeah,
I have to tell you
time
something.
is not your friend.
I know. I have to tell you something. I have my little friend here, the Smartbox bobblehead, and I've been watching Kim, and while you're talking, and it's funny because when we first met Kim, and then we actually spent some time with her in Toronto a year and so ago, and her subprime process makes this customer feel like they really truly matter versus most subprime where it's all right, listen, though, here we go. I'll give you a call when we're done, and
I'll get back to you tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they're sitting there for that stupid Hyundai Elantra that smells like cat something or other. And they come out of there excited because somebody made them feel good. And what's interesting? No amount of sushi bars, as tasty as they may be, Wagyu, whatever, are going to replace somebody walking into a showroom and getting a, how you doing? Honestly, I have seen people in Mercedes walk into Mercedes stores and be totally turned off. I've talked 100 times out of my friend that walked into a Lexus store here in the Vancouver area, and nobody would talk to him. And his opinion of that, what is it, $20 million Lexus building was junk because nobody gave a tinker's.
We're out of time. Jeff, any final comments from anyone on the panel?
Thank you all so much. I enjoyed this immensely. And I've got to tell you something. Pamela, Kim, Perry, thank you. Ladies, I haven't seen you guys in a long time, so thank you. Perry, you've added something. I got to be honest here. The young guy came up with some of the most deepest stuff. It's amazing. And I thought you were going to tell me you came out of college and went right into this role, but you've been doing stuff and you got a lot of knowledge. So thank you so very much.
That means a lot. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Have yourself a great week. Thanks for tuning in the Auto Hub show. If you haven't signed up for our email list, you should. We're dropping a bunch of content soon, so stay tuned. Have a great week. Here we go.
Check out the Anna Vincent interview once I get through the 3 hours of witty banter.
Yeah, Jeff's new favorite person in the universe is in Monaco selling and influencing car stuff, just so you know.
Oh, man, when I grow up, I want to be just like her, man. Wow.
I better watch out, Patrina. I think there's a new competitor there for the favorite
There you
car
go.
role.
There you go. And we're going to try to go to our lead out now.